of becoming law. President Biden meets with congressional leaders today about the nation's debt limit. The government's at risk of being unable to pay its bills as soon as June 1st. The jury is expected to begin deliberations today in the civil trial in New York in which former President Trump is accused of rape. He denies it.
I am up now.
This is AP News. Sentencing hearing today in the killing of an armed protester.
So we can.
March in Texas.
Okay.
The U.S. Army sergeant will be sentenced.
Okay, I am up.
Donna Warder.
So let me know if you can, if everything sounds well.
28-year-old Garrett Foster in April of 2020. Perry was working.
Okay, Pastor. Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Perry says
Okay, can you hear him?
Sounds great on my end.
Okay, great.
carrying an AK-47
Fantastic.
rifle from downtown Austin, and witnesses say they never saw Foster raise his weapon. The report unsealed dozens of pages of text messages and social media posts from Perry. One saying, quote, "It is official. I am a racist because I do not agree with people acting like animals at the zoo," end quote. I'm Donna Warder.
And I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see mostly sunny skies here for today with a high in the low 70s. Northeast winds at 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. And for tonight, mostly clear, low near 48. By Wednesday, sunshine, high of 78 degrees. Thursday, plenty of blue skies and sun. We'll see a high around 81. Friday, a chance for showers and thunderstorms, cloudy, high of 79. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 49.
The Takedown with Cliff Schechter.
Here's the 10 most amazing.
Okay, how much time do we have?
Ones you must know that the media will
About
not.
5 or 4.5 minutes.
Manufacturing jobs.
Yes, I'm going to start playing the first of the 3-minute commercials at 6:05:50.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Initial 367,000 manufacturing jobs, good-paying jobs. The highest increase in U.S. manufacturing jobs in 30 years.
Oh, did Republicans cry and talk about bringing those jobs back for years as they kept passing incentives for people to offshore, places like China, where Trump has a bank account. Guess what happened? Joe Biden came in and passed incentives for us to keep these jobs here. He paid 750,000 overall. Trump didn't do that. Joe Biden did that. For that reason, we have all these high-paying, high-benefit jobs.
Hear more from Cliff at heartlandsignal.com and subscribe to his YouTube page.
Help wanted at Mark Drugs in Roselle and Deerfield. Thanks to an increase in business across the board, both locations are actively looking for hardworking pharmacy technicians who are available to work on Fridays and Saturdays. We are interested in hiring introductory level and experienced pharmacy technicians who are looking to work at a different kind of pharmacy. A pharmacy where medicine is not only dispensed, but also made from scratch to meet the special needs of our patients, human and companion animals alike. Mark Drugs is a great place to work. We offer competitive wages, pay time off, and 401k for those who end up going full-time. If you live in the Chicagoland area and are looking for an exciting new career in healthcare, consider Mark Drugs for your potential future employment. Remember, you have a choice when it comes to your healthcare career. The great choice is Mark Drugs in Roselle or Deerfield. After all, you gotta love working for Mark Drugs. Better health and care for you and your pets. Call or text 847-419-9898 or inquire at info@markdrugs.com.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
The future depends on
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Every day, teachers are shaping our tomorrows, starting their students on journeys that will change the course of history. Right now, in a classroom somewhere in the United States, there's a teacher inspiring a future scientist who will make preventing pandemics their life's work, sharpening the mind of an aspiring environmentalist who will help combat climate change, and generating possibilities for a student who will be the first in their family to graduate college. It all starts with teachers who meet challenges with creativity, who reinvent education for the future. who work towards a school system that lifts up every child, regardless of race, income, or zip code, and to enable the full potential of our students, our communities, and our country. Explore a career that leaves a legacy you can be proud of. Shape the future. Teach. Learn more and receive free support at teach.org.
What's one of your favorite memories?
That's a tough question. Well, there was this one time I went camping with my parents in a forest back when I was maybe like 8 or 9. And I can remember one night we were laying out in our hammocks and we were just, watching the trees rustling in the wind above us, and we could hear the sounds of the forest all around us. Frogs singing and owls calling and the creek running nearby. It was amazing. It felt like we were a part of it all. I don't know if I do it justice trying to describe it, but I'll definitely never forget it.
Most of us have a memory of being in nature we'll never forget. Let's protect the world's natural places so more memories can be made for generations to come. Visit worldwildlife.org.
You want to feel important.
1 minute.
You want to be part of
Thank
something
you.
bigger, something that matters and can help change things.
You want to feel like you belong.
We know. We felt that way too. And that's why we did something about it.
We aren't just Army National Guard soldiers.
We are normal people just like you. But our part-time service in the Army National Guard means we get to be more.
When our communities are in need, we get the chance to stand up and do something about it.
We get to serve in our own region and help the people we call neighbors.
From the lake shores of Ohio, Michigan,
30 seconds.
and Minnesota,
The fertile fields of Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa, to the wide open plains of North and South Dakota.
we are here for our hometowns.
And together, we can make a difference. Take on your legacy. Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more.
10 seconds.
Illinois Army National Guard.
All right,
aired by
let's
the
have a
Illinois
great show.
Broadcasters Association and this station.
Stand by.
WCPT 820, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am grieving.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, getting a little bit of feedback here. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I am Santita Jackson. We're streaming with my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please get on over there. And the Santita Jackson and Friends page, that is the only page I've got, everybody. So please meet my morning stars and everybody, Jewel and Joyce and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia and Ashley King from Memphis and Macon. Meet Andre. All of these wonderful, wonderful morning stars. Have some great conversations with all of them. Meet them and let us gather together. Let us gather together. We have a lot of great conversations with the morning stars on the YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, and on Twitter at Santita J. At Santita J. Hope you'll meet me over there. And everybody, Jewel, Joyce, Shirley, Andre, everybody, please like and share the show. Please, if just stop and just do it real quick. Please like and share the show. Everybody, please like and share the show. Like and share the show. Ashley King, like and share the show. Donnie D, hey, like and share the show. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about these falling poll numbers of President Biden's. They've got some Democratic operatives and some Democratic voters nervous, anxious. Okay, yes, we're a year out, but it's got a lot of people very concerned because now polls are showing that in a matchup with either Trump or DeSantis, President Biden would lose. What can he do to shore up his polling numbers? Why do you think it is that his polling numbers are falling? It can't be ageism because former President Trump is deep into his 70s. It's got to be something more than that. Maybe it's just how robust he may or may not look. I don't know what it is, but I want to hear from you at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We're going to be talking about the ethics scandal at the Supreme Court. You know, there is a voting rights case that Virginia Thomas, the wife of Clarence Thomas, she took a secret payment ahead of a landmark voting rights case that, of course, her husband voted to diminish. She took a secret payment from an organization that sided against voting rights. Should these cases be reviewed? I mean, all of these cases that these Supreme Court members, where there's even a whiff of an ethical breach, a whiff of unfairness, should these cases not come under review? And if they come under review, who would review them? Of course, John Nichols is with us today. He has a wonderful piece in The Nation that says, "To hell with kings." That's right, spinning off of the King Charles coronation. So we got a lot to talk about today, but I want to hear from you about these poll numbers of President Biden's. What do you think is going on? What do you think is the remedy? 773-763-9278. It was wonderful seeing so many of you last night at Congressman Jonathan Jackson's town hall. It was packed at the IBEW Local 34 Hall at 27th and Martin Luther King Drive. It was fantastic. We had a great time, some good food, great conversation, and it was what you want to see congresspersons do, where they tell you the committees that they're on, when they tell you which is what he did and what he's doing. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful event. And I'm looking forward to attending more of them, not just of his events, but events where we would be able to talk with all of our congresspersons. I told you, all of our elected officials, voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. This is when the work begins, and the work begins not just with the people whom we elect, but you. You got to hold them accountable, but you need to know what they're doing, and you need to be interested in that. So I'm looking forward to more of that. It was great to see, all of these commissioners come out, and Pat Dowell, and oh my goodness, it was just great. It was a really, really great evening, and I've had no sleep. So there we go, everybody. I've had no sleep, but you know what? Whenever I'm with my brother, I'm always all good. Let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. President Biden and Speaker McCarthy are going to discuss the debt limit today as a possible default looms. Will we have a default? Yes or no? Russian President Putin is defiant on Victory Day after Russia aims missiles at Kiev. And we want to know what your thoughts are, everybody. We want to know what your thoughts are about this debt ceiling. What do you think is going to happen, everybody? What do you think is going to happen? Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. Of course, Ariana Preston, the Chicago police officer, just 24 years of age, who always wanted to be a cop. People have been arrested in her murder, and let's be clear that it was a murder, and we are praying for that family. She was only 24 years of age, had gotten her master's degree, and had devoted her life to law enforcement, and yet she was murdered in her own neighborhood. Oh boy. 773-763-9278. If you want to comment on that as well, we can do that. These guns are not made in Chicago. We purchased them from Indiana. And I just heard on Tom Hartman's show that sometimes they're pulled off of bases. So many of these gun persons, they have military training. So we've got to talk about that. Now, I'm not sure that these kids did, but we've got to talk about that, everybody. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 58 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, 74 degrees, thunderstorms. In the NBA, who would have thunk it? The Warriors are on the verge of elimination, everybody. The Lakers lead that series 3-1, and they won last night 104-101. The Heat lead their series 3-1 over the Knicks. They won last night 109-101. And tonight, the Celtics will be playing, who will they be playing? That's right. Well, it's not the Lakers, but of course I've copied this down incorrectly. And then the Suns will be playing the Nuggets. And so, you know what? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Warriors are out of it? I hope not, everybody. I hope not. The Golden Knights lead their series 2-1 over the Oilers, and they won last night 5-1. Tonight, the Hurricanes will be playing the Devils, and the Stars will be playing the Kraken. In Major League Baseball, the Padres will be facing off against the Twins in Minneapolis today. The Royals 12, the White Sox 5, they'll be facing off once again tonight. The Cardinals 3, the Cubs 1, they will be facing off against the Cards again tonight. We have got good news from Pastor Stephen Thurston, New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. If you have not heard him preach, do not, as Aretha Franklin said of his father and of some of our great preachers, don't die first. He is absolutely brilliant at what he does. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He said about your daddy, about Reverend Parsons, about Jasper Williams. I know who I'm talking to. Boy, baby's grandbaby. That's right. You all don't age. And it's only because you're holy that I'm not calling you Dorian Gray. It's like that. Y'all, it's like that. I'm like, how old are you again? Oh, my goodness. But, you know, and of course on Facebook Live. When are you on Facebook Live?
Fridays, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Okay.
Right under my name, Stephen Thurston.
With a PH.
With the PH, yes, ma'am.
With a PH. Well, okay, everybody. So, well, let's get some good news from Pastor Stephen Thurston.
Let's get it. I want to talk about self-love today, Santita. Self-love, it can sound a little cheesy and even egotistical to some people, but the truth is that it's hugely underrated. It's a hugely underrated key in finding long-term happiness, inner peace, and living a full life. Self-love is crucial, because your external world will reflect how you feel about yourself internally. You know, on Mirror Moments, we talk about changing what's within so that you can change what's around. So internal is important. Self-love also provides you with a safety net to take risks and go after your dreams, because you know that no matter what the outcome, you'll be okay. Your self-worth is not on the line. The problem is that many of the teachings on self-love can be very surface level. Yes, it's great to be able to look in the mirror and embrace your flaws, but real self-love is about so much more than that. Self-love is honoring yourself and recognizing your worth. Self-love is putting yourself first and taking charge of your life. Self-love is caring deeply about yourself to the point where you recognize things, recognize people, recognize thoughts and energy that does not serve you. Most of us don't experience self-love. Why? Because we complicated. We put all these walls and barriers up that keep us from being content with ourselves. Here's how it happens. You'll say things like this: I'll love myself when X. I'll be happy when X. Here's the question, though. We all need to honestly wrestle with this. What have I put in between myself and unconditional love for myself? I'm going to state that question again, because I really need you to ask and answer it today. What have I put in between myself and unconditional love for myself? Let me ask you this way. What would change in your life if you chose to love yourself, like right now, while you're driving, while you're getting breakfast ready, while you're getting ready for your day? What would change in your life if you chose to start loving yourself right now? And I hear the question that's in your mind. So, Stephen, what's the secret to real self-love? Here it is. Real self-love is about recognizing that your true identity is your inner spirit. You are a soul, not just a body. You simply have a body to carry your soul from place to place. Real self-love is about understanding that you were created by God and you are made out of the same divine energy as God. Real self-love is about realizing that you don't have to be perfect to be enough. You don't have to meet some invisible standards put in place by society, your parents, your friends, colleagues, in order to feel good about yourself. Sure, you may make mistakes, but you are not your mistakes. Real self-love is about accepting that you aren't the same as the people you keep comparing yourself to, the people who've already achieved all of those amazing things you aspire to, and that's okay. In fact, it's more than okay, because you know it's all a part of your purpose here in the world, to be you, a once-in-humankind blend of interests, passions, gifts, and even quirks. No one can compete with you at being you. Real self-love is about claiming your entitlement to an abundant, love-filled, joyful, adventurous, and fulfilling life. Not because you finally proved yourself or put in another years of hard work, but simply because you were born into this world. That alone entitles you to love, support, and prosperity. And if you allow it, you can claim it. Real self-love is about remembering the bigger picture of who you are. You are God's unique creation, expressing itself as a human for a little while on this place called Earth. You are meant to constantly renew yourself and your life and your desires. Step into the unknown, take risks, and make mistakes. Listen, that's all a part of the plan. Real self-love is about embracing who you are, having the courage to show your authentic self to the world without worrying, what are people going to think? Giving yourself permission to design a life that feels right for you rather than remaining bound in a life that other people expect you to live. Real self-love is about treating yourself like you would treat a loved one or a best friend. Talking to yourself with kind words, showing yourself compassion when you stumble, and becoming your own biggest cheerleader and fan. As Diane von Furstenberg has said, the most important relationship is the relationship you have with yourself, because no matter what happens, you will always be with yourself. Huge part of the human experience is emotions, and how you feel about yourself shapes so much of your world. By allowing love to flow through your being, you open up the channel for others to see themselves as valuable too. Self-love is knowing your worth and honoring your being. So here it is. Love yourself deeply today. Start today, like right now. And don't be afraid for the world to see you loving yourself. The more we can love ourselves and tell ourselves that it's okay to love themselves too, the more love there is in this world. And we can always use a little bit more back, Santita, a little bit more love, one towards the other.
Amen. What the world needs now, you're not thinking lyrics.
That's
is
it.
Love, sweet love.
Sweet love.
That's the only thing that there's just too little of. Thank you, Burt Bacharach, who made his transition just a few weeks ago. I said, wow, but he left such a tremendous legacy. That's what the world needs. Love, sweet love. Thank you for that, because I've been guilty of that. And that's something that I have been working with and working on. I always felt that if I got to a certain size, things would be perfect. And that it's just, that's not true. Just doesn't happen.
That's not true.
Doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. Just love you right now. How about that? Love you right now. This is it. This is it. Pastor Stephen Thurston, Facebook Live at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time every Friday, and on this Friday. Happy Mother's Day. Sending you so much love.
Take care.
Absolutely. Dr. Shanina Knighton. Hey, Dr. Nina, Heydrnina. Have a question for you today. Now that we are ending the COVID emergency and we're seeing the airlines, the president said yesterday that they're going to actually go back to something that they used to do years ago. When you were delayed or when something happened on your flight, they used to provide a meal, they used to give you a hotel room. That stopped like 20 odd years ago. Well, now he's going to reinstitute that. But it made me think about traveling on a plane. How do you travel on a plane safely, Dr. Knighton?
Good morning, Santita.
Good morning.
The thing is like, so I mentioned this a while ago, your host, and the one thing I can say about airplanes is once up in the air, they have significant amount of air exchanges per minute. I want to say it's something like maybe 3 to 5 air exchanges per minute. So there's enough exchange there between the clean air and outside air that does make the air more safe, because you're not having recirculated air just inside of the plane. And I know I've expressed this inside of a car, that people shouldn't use recirculated air inside of a car. Now, when the plane initially takes off and then when it lands, there's no air exchange. So when you're first getting on and everyone is all crowded up and you're walking down the aisles, just trying to get to your seat, then there is no air exchange. It's the same recirculated air. So for me personally, I always wear my mask when I get on the plane, and I wear my mask when I'm getting off the plane. I don't know about anyone, but it's interesting because my ear is very attuned to cough. And sometimes I've been on the plane where it sounded like a symphony. And I'm very grateful to have my mask because in that case, it's like you're there, you're close in, you can't go anywhere. So your mask can at least help. But if some droplets are traveling or you're sitting next to someone that has a cough, you at least have something to protect yourself just in case there are droplets that are spewing.
You know what? Think about that, everybody. Because now people are on these planes without masks. And they're hacking, they're coughing, they're sitting next to you, all of that. I'm not trying to have a fight, but please protect yourself. Protect yourself. Please go to Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA, and let's have a conversation with her. You know what? I'm going to bring this up to you right now, Dr. Nina. You know what I want to do? I want to have a conversation with you about maternal mortality in the United States. And if there's, and you know, let's you know, whoever else you want to have join the conversation, I'd like to do that because it's such a problem. It's such a problem. And we were with Congressman Jonathan Jackson last week, and he's on a committee that looks at that. And that is not just looking at it, they're really seeking to address it. Because sadly, if you want to put a woman at risk of death, you want to increase her chances many-fold, let her have a baby in the United States. That is white, black, brown, yellow, red, indigenous. That is ridiculous. And so we've got to talk about that. Dr. Knight, sending you so much love today, everybody. Let's talk about President Biden's falling poll numbers. Why is it that DeSantis and Trump, at least this week, are beating him in the polls? And Donna Brazile, former chairman of the Democratic Party, one of the top political operatives of the past 40 years, said, look, we need to be concerned about this. What about you? Call me at 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT. Dr. Knighton, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Well, I've had no sleep. Oh, I mean, I hosted this event for Congressman Jackson for my brother last night. Now, you know, if my brother asks me to do anything, and he never tries to put me in a bad position, but, you know, he needed me, so, you know, I'm going to do. I'm going to do what my brother asked me to do. And, but I'm not tired this morning because I had so much fun with him. We went out afterwards. Yes. So that was on me. I could have left at, at 8:30. But no, I said, let me spend a little time with him because, I don't take any opportunity, any encounter that I have with anyone for granted. It's just, whew. I said, and then he flew out this morning, I think just before 6 a.m. I said, now let me spend a little time with him. And boy, we laughed a while. And, and I think there's something, about your mood. It changes your energy level, Dr. Knighton. Because, I tell you, I came away from that very energized, a little tired last night, though, but I had completed the show. I just needed to finish the run sheet and, schedule the tweets and all of that. But, wow. But I got no sleep. I mean, I got like an hour and a half. And I've got another long evening. So I've got some errands to run, but by about 1 o'clock, I'm going to take a nap from 1 until about 3:30 because I've got to go out. I'm going to see A Stranger at the Gate, everybody. Several of you called the Rainbow Push office to talk to to go to see A Stranger at the Gate. It begins tonight at 6 p.m. The Illinois Holocaust Museum is hosting it. So if you want to go, please contact the Illinois Holocaust Museum and be there, because it's almost at capacity. And I am seeking to interview the subject of the film. It's a fantastic movie, Dr. Knighton. A military veteran was going to go to a mosque and kill everybody. And he was thrown into some confusion because his daughter, his little eight-year-old daughter, had friends who had a friend who was Muslim. And so he said, I don't want my daughter to find this out about me, and then, I don't want to risk her not losing her love and respect. So he went to the mosque, and even though as he entered the mosque there was something about him that made the worshipers uneasy, they welcomed him in a loving way, and that threw him way off. And just through a series of they just loved him. And they were so kind to him, it completely changed his view of him. He converted, and he became president of the mosque. And then they lovingly confronted him about his plans to kill them. And it's just, I
1 minute.
Can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much. Who do we have there? Mr. Castaneda, who do we have?
We have Attorney Patillo, and got Attorney Hoffler on so far.
Okay, fantastic. We're good.
Miss Wells didn't answer.
Okay, no worries. We're good. But everybody go to the Illinois Holocaust Museum. Thank you so much. Go to the Illinois Holocaust Museum because they're almost at capacity. At least they were yesterday, and now they just might be. But try. I'm going to be out there tonight at 6 p.m. I cannot wait to see this documentary.
10 seconds.
Okay, we're coming up.
Stand by.
Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am breathing.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. I'm coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and streaming on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, Santita Jackson and Friends, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, please get on over there and like it. And all of my morning stars, Joyce and Kenneth, and oh my goodness, who else is there? Andre and Eric out there in LA, L. Stanley Davis. We're all sending you our love and prayers. He's still in the hospital, and I'm so glad that you are still with us, sending Stanley so much love. Everybody, Mark, hey. Everybody, Raphael, hey. Like and share the show. Donnie D, like and share the show. Like and share the show. Like and share the show, if you will. And please join my Santita Jackson and Friends page. That's the only page that I'm active on. That's the only one, the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Let's talk about President Biden's numbers, his polling numbers, which are not, they're not that strong. Indeed, they are dropping. What's going on? Is it the debt ceiling crisis? Is it, some people are saying, look, I voted for him because I wanted Trump out, but now I don't, I want someone else. Is that it? Is it as, what is it? What do you think is driving his numbers down? Indeed, no less a Democratic figure than Democratic strategist, former head of the party, Donna Brazile. She came out of the Jackson campaign, by the way. She traveled with Mrs. Jackson in the 83-84 cycle. She said Democrats need to wake up to these polling numbers. She said, it kept me up, and I thought they should wake up and look at these numbers. It's sobering in the sense that the coalition that elected Biden with the historic numbers that we saw in 2020, that coalition right now is fragmented. That should concern the Democrats. What do you think about that? Then the polls show last week, over the past few days, that President Biden is trailing both Trump and DeSantis in these various polls. What do you think is going on, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. And then I see in the conversation, an online magazine, that even with these dragging poll numbers, those dragging poll numbers will not matter in 2024 if enough voters loathe his opponent even more. Will it be as simple as that? I'm not so sure. I don't think it's going to be that simple this time. Of course, Robert Patillo, what say you?
Well, I feel interesting with Biden because they still have the same core issue now that they've had for the entirety of the administration, which is perhaps the worst press team of any president in American history. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that as a point of hyperbole, because if you think about President Trump's term, just to give you the most recent example, every single night of the week, every single day, every newspaper article, every cable news interview, there was a Trumpite, there was a Trump acolyte there to push the administration's message. And that's why we knew so many figures in the Trump world, whether that was Omarosa or Scaramucci, Bill Barr or Pompeo. No matter what it was, there was somebody within Trump orbit, either directly from the White House or further out into the into the cultural zeitgeist, where you'd have Diamond and Silk talking on Trump's behalf, Pastor Mark Burns, Darrell Scott, on down the line. You'd have all these figures in the Trump orbit carrying the message all the way down to talk radio, down to podcasts, down to YouTube videos, down to TikTok videos, etc. We do not see that with the Biden administration. We don't get messaging from the Biden administration. They don't put him out there to speak directly. One thing about President Trump, he would get up on a Monday morning and call into Fox and Friends and stay on there for 2 hours talking about policy. So there was a connection between him and the voters, but also a connection between the American public and knowing exactly what was going on step by step. The Biden administration, when they do something good, they don't tell people about it. And because of that, we are left with a vacuum of information in the news cycle, which is, of course, fueled by conspiracies, right-wing talking points, QAnon, grifters, etc., which I think are absolutely driving down the poll numbers. So I think if Biden can get his press shop together, me and you and every other black radio host have been saying for the past 5 years how nice it would be to have either President Biden, Vice President Harris, or even anybody from the campaign or the administration to come speak to all these issues, but they still have not done so. And because of that, you have a lot of black folks out here saying, well, we voted for you in record numbers in 2020. We voted to get Ossoff and Warnock in there in 2021. We came out and voted again to keep your majority in 2022. And what exactly have we gotten out of this? We haven't gotten voting rights. We haven't gotten criminal justice reform. We haven't gotten the George Floyd Act. We haven't got a vote on the study commission on reparations. What was the point of it? And when you can't carry that message to people in that vacuum, people begin to say that you're not doing anything. I think that's the biggest issue they're running into right now.
Attorney Darrell Jones, what's the big issue?
Well, good morning, Santita. And I think that Robert Patillo certainly was on to a point there, talking about Biden's bad messaging that's coming from the White House. I think, though, that the big issue right now that everyone is facing is messaging. It really is. Because, I always say, and you'll continue to hear me say, that, politics really is a kitchen table issue. The people want to know that the government is taking care of the issues that are immediately before them. Do I have gas in my car to get my kids to where they need to go? What is my education structure like? What is my income? What is my job situation like? The Biden administration has the ability to lift all of those issues up. The infrastructure bill was overwhelmingly success, bipartisan success. The child tax credit was an overwhelming success. The pandemic economy that he inherited and then turned around, an overwhelming success. the pandemic rollout itself in dealing with where we were when he initially came into office. They have all these issues they can roll out, and we haven't even touched on Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson or the number of black women that he's appointed to appellate federal judges. All of these are phenomenal successes that the administration can point to. The problem is, here in the United States, we have a 60-second memory. And so, things happen and we're on to the next issue. What the administration has to do is they have to bring it back home to remind people where we were, where we are, what has been accomplished. That's what I think, that's the reason why the poll numbers are down. They're not pushing, and Robert was completely on point, they're not continuing to push in the memory of the American people the accomplishments of the administration. That's what I think the big issue is right now.
Reverend Wilson. I'm sorry. Go on.
Just to piggyback on what Daryl said, just by way of example, last week the unemployment numbers came out that the U.S. unemployment is at 3.4%, the lowest in modern American history, lower by 0.2 percentage points from the 6.3 that President Trump was bragging about. You would have thought they would have had the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, all out here on every single news outlet, yelling from the mountaintops. We got unemployment down to 3.4% to give people some confidence in the economy. But no, we got nothing. We saw with the bank bailouts from about a month ago. We all thought the entire banking industry was going to go under a month ago. They were able to stabilize that and nationalize many of the banks to prevent a 2008 banking crisis. You used to have Janet Yellen to be on every television show talking about that. They don't do that. So it's hard for people to have confidence in what's going on when they don't know what's going on.
Call us at 773-763-9278. Karen Lene, it's always wonderful seeing you. She said, we need to stop saying that we haven't gotten anything because it's not true. How about we correct them with the truth? But Jewel said, we don't see what we voted for. Police reform, voting rights protections, and student loans. And so what do you think, everybody? What do you think? Because I can tell you, and you are a witness to this, Robert Patillo, if you want to get Republicans on your show, they jump at the opportunity. You got to go through all of this drama to try and get Democrats on your show. I mean, Karen, now that's the other side of it. That's the other side. I mean, I don't take it personally because I'm accustomed to rejection. I get it. And I'm accustomed to people running after us once a week or two before the election, got to have you, and all of this discussion about if black people don't vote, we're going to lose. No, don't put that on me. I know you need me. I know I'm the backbone of the party, but don't put that on me. There's some things that you have not done that have undermined your own effort to be reelected. Don't put that on me. You did it. You did it. If you choose not to excite me, if you choose not to put the most exciting people, the people who I like, on the road to see me, well, then shame on you. Shame on you. You don't use Bernie Sanders. He's the most popular elected official in the United States of America. You don't use him. You can't figure out a way to use AOC. You can't figure out a way to use the squad. You cannot figure out a way to use the people who are the most popular people in their districts. Seriously? No, I'm not going to take that one. No. So, Reverend Wilson.
Well, I think two things, and we noticed this in Chicago and all around the nation. People who get to these elected offices inherit such a mess, they fail to see the most important person on their team is that person who coordinates communication, who tells the story repeatedly over and over again. You can't just say, well, I'm doing good at the end of the when you decide to run again. You have to tell people each and every day. You have social media, you have the media, you have the bully pulpit. Biden has not used his bully pulpit as effectively as Donald Trump did, who had nothing to say, but he said it every day, and all night. The second thing is people who assume the office of president, when you can't control the Congress, when you don't have the power to move things through legislatively, then you have to use the power of the presidential power where you can use executive orders. And you pass things by executive order until and at such time that you can have a Congress that can go with you on certain pieces of legislation. I learned from Lyndon Baines Johnson, as you did, Santita. He knew how to use the power of his pen, and he also knew how to negotiate with both sides of the aisle to get things done. I think Biden is not using his pen as effectively, and he's not using the communications apparatus available to him and his team as effectively as he should, so that people know what's going on. I was so proud of Congressman Jackson last night. The first time in the 1st Congressional District we've had a town hall where the congressperson said, look, this is what I'm doing. It's my first 100 days. These are the bills that have come before us. These are the committees that I'm on. These are the challenges that we face. We've never had that. These people go to office and don't communicate. It's like you go away. What are you doing? And that's why people, when you get ready to run, they say, well, I don't know what they're doing. I haven't heard from them. So I think he has to use the presidential powers effectively, and he's got to hire a team that knows how to do media and is shaping messages and pushing them out. You all know how to do this. I go on Robert's show. I feel like a main celebrity because he packages this stuff daily. This is not something you do once in a while. Mm-hmm. This is every single day. You're up all night with messaging and listening to top stories. This president has a whole team of people. What are they doing?
Well, you know, I mean,
and
there is something to be said for people coming out on a Monday night, several hundred. The Union Hall was packed. It was packed.
You know, and they sat there till nobody moved.
I mean, we
don't sit and listen like that.
Mm-mm. Now, mind you, he's also a great speaker and entertaining, but he had a lot to say, and then people had a lot of questions. We feel, more than 200 people sent in questions. We were able to distill the questions down. Well, they were able to, because I'm not on his staff, but they gave me the questions to ask. And I said, okay, this is a great smattering of questions. That's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. You've got more than enough top officials in the Biden administration to get out here and get out the message. So don't put that heavy lift on me. You got to put there's something to be said, Jeanette, for people sending your people from Washington to Jackson, Mississippi, to Detroit.
Absolutely. Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason, with all of the transportation issues that Congressman Jackson outlined last night, Buttigieg should be on the road, just on the infrastructure, on the what are you doing? What have you done? What are the barriers? Who's blocking you? So you can get these Congress people that don't want to vote the right way, you can get them out of office. You can't just sit and talk on television by yourself. Have your entire cabinet moving. Look, the one thing about Reverend Jackson, you cannot sit in the building and say you're an organizer. You cannot sit in the building and do nothing and not communicate with people. So much so they say, I don't know what they're doing over there. You have to tell your story repeatedly.
Attorney Hoffler had to get off.
Well, I want you to call me. Call me at 773-763-9278. I mean, you're making the point. Robert Patillo, everyone here has made the point about messaging. And, and Karen, to be sure, you have said, look, we tell too much of the negative story. But it means something, Karen, for people to, it means something for me to introduce someone from Washington to you. It means something. It meant something for people last night to see someone who they helped to raise in the community come from Washington and tell them this is what we're doing in Congress. It means it takes on a whole different life of its own. And that's what's important. You got to do that. I'm a talk show host. That's not my job. That's not my job. What I can do is I can try and defend, I can try and say, I have a fact-based show, Robert Patillo, as do you, and as do you, Daryl Jones. But Robert, come on. I mean, I can't do all this. It's like y'all need to be I should be trying to run away from their communications team because they're calling me so much. This is the third largest market in the country. That's crazy.
Exactly, and a big part of it is they expect black folks in particular to be political sharecroppers. They have consultants that they pay $500 million. They have press secretaries whose salaries are, $700,000 and $800,000 a year. And they have consulting firms that they bring out, $2-3 million contracts with, all to get the messaging out for the campaign. These presidential campaigns now raise between $2 and $3 billion, and that's before you even get to the PAC money and the soft money, etc. So we're talking about these multi-billion-dollar campaigns for president, but then they don't want to give no money to black radio.
You have a caller.
Run ads on black radio. They don't want to sit down with black journalists and talk about those issues and answer hard questions. They don't want to go on black media outlets because they're afraid we're going to ask them a question that might scare white people away. And so because of that, they're expecting us to just take our lumps and campaign for them without actually receiving any of the millions of dollars they're spending on advertising. And because of that, it's very difficult to get messaging out there. We have this new generation of media, which is very much internet-based, which is social media-based, which is YouTube stars, TikTok stars, etc. And they're not really bought into the good old boy system, and they're not willing to do that sharecropping for them. Well, now you have an issue getting your messaging out there when no one's willing to do it for free for you anymore.
Call me at 773-762-9278. Hold on. Let me just stay right there, Reverend, because I want to bring up Jewel. Jewel, what's on your mind today?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, Jewel up there in New York. What's up? What's on your mind today?
Yes, it's me again. I've been listening, and, we all love Biden, and we got him the votes that he needed, and we need the stuff we need too. If you do something for me and you're suffering, and I don't do nothing about that suffering, I don't remember what happened last time. I'm just saying. Come on, we really need some tax credits for the children, the Police Reform Act, the Voting Rights Protections from John Lewis. Done did so much for us to have that. But we have to go back to that again. It's just unfathomable. I really need us to stay focused every day. Please like and share these shows because our existence could be extinct if we don't get this together. Amen? Somebody, please help me.
Okay, so what are you asking exactly?
I'm asking that the Democrats do the things that we're supposed to have done. That get back to the table, draw up the papers for the police reform, because we have some survivors out here with injuries, and I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, now I hear you.
I know exactly what I'm talking about.
No. Look, I'm not doubting it. I just think, and the needs are really great, Reverend Wilson. And you hear Jewel is saying, I need you to speak to me. And, you can't just...
the children with the schools.
Mm-hmm. So education, health.
This is the future we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They could have had some iPads sent to these kids and Wi-Fi in certain communities. That should have been jumped up so quick with the very quickness. 1, 2, 3. I see them pull up things 1, 2, 3 and get it set up the next day. You understand? The next day. You can't just say, "Oh, we're going to ignore black suspects." You can't do that. You can't do that. This is a rainbow coalition. We need everybody. You see the march with our brother Jordan Neely the other day. You see, everybody, all colors. People scared. They want to be safe. They don't want to be. Come on now. I hope somebody else can read right now.
Well then, Jewel, let me ask you, what do you think that the president needs to do to pull up his polling numbers?
Right now, he needs to be listening to this show. Amen. He needs to listen to this show. He needs to get on the phone with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Reverend Sharpton. That's right. And set up what is he going to do that we're looking for. That we've been for. This is nothing new. This is serious. I watch the news every day, all day. Crying.
Robert Patillo, what do you say to that?
I can't agree more. I think that part of the problem is this issue where the Biden administration knows the things that they promised and the things they haven't delivered on. Because of that, they don't want to talk about the things they promised and haven't delivered So they have to hide. Because they're hiding, it makes it very difficult to get out there to people where you haven't delivered for them. So it's a chicken and egg type situation where because you haven't got an immigration reform done, and you have the migrant caravan coming to the southern border because of the end of Title 42, you don't want to really get out there and talk to people because you're afraid they're going to ask you about it. You don't have a good plan in place because you haven't done anything on voting rights. You're afraid to go to black media because they're going to ask you, well, what are you going to do about voting rights? What are you going to do about criminal justice reform? What are you going to do about expanding economic opportunity? What the symbolism of Ketanji, the symbolism of Kamala, the symbolism of having a black press secretary, etc. Those are great.
She's off.
People have real finite issues they want you to do. So I think the Biden administration in many ways is hiding because they don't want to have to answer some of those tough questions directly from their base, and that's going to, of course, push down those poll numbers when they're not getting communicated with. It's like a relationship. You and your significant other can be going through who knows what, but as long as y'all are communicating, you can always find a way through. As soon as that communication stops, that's where you're really going to have a problem with that relationship.
I mean, Daryl, and what's wrong with saying, I don't know, or, I should have done that? And what's wrong with owning up to, wish I'd done that better?
Oh, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Yeah, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Matter of fact, the position should be, we're working on it now, and this is how we're going to work on it, and this is why I need another term to push this through, and I need you to help get some candidates in place to push through voting rights, push through the police reform, push through the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. All those things are what should be being said right now, but we're just not hearing it. Not that it's not time, we're not hearing it yet.
Everybody, what do you think? Call me at 773-763-9278. And for all you lawyers on the line, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire, Daryl Jones, Attorney Daryl Jones, who will be on at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time today on his show with Attorney Barbara Arnwine on WOL in D.C. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, Attorney Robert Patillo, who's on WAOK from 1 to 4 p.m. every Sunday Eastern Standard Time. I want to ask you about all of these cases that we're seeing, particularly this voting rights case that Virginia Thomas, Mrs. Clarence Thomas, got a payment from a conservative organization that opposed voting rights. Her husband opposes it as well. That compromises how we view the case. And my question is, should the voting rights case and these other cases, where there clearly have been ethical breaches with the members of the court, should those cases be under review? And if they are reviewed, who reviews them? John Nichols in the next hour as well. He says, to hell with kings. Oh, we got a lot to talk about. We want to hear from you on the Santita Jackson Show. Santita Jackson Show, July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. Hope that you will be there. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And you need to be there. And tonight I'll be at the Illinois Holocaust Museum, A Stranger at the Gate. I cannot wait to see this documentary. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. You all keep on talking, because everybody's listening. I mean...
Well, I think two things.
Okay.
Two things, Santita. They never hire black public relations firms to design the media and to do the media placement for them. They don't hire black creatives to design their ads.
They did when Reverend was running. He made that, you remember.
Now.
But I'm just saying, as we have these black people in place in the Democratic Party who have these high positions, they're not advocating. That's my only point.
Right. They're not advocating, and that is right. You can't reach a people that don't know you if you don't know how to reach them. And so you have to hire people that know the communities that you need.
And who fight for them.
You only poll in
what?
Yeah, and you only poll in a certain segment of society. So you never poll us, so you never get our issues and our how we want to address the issues. So I'm just saying we got to be in the mix. We can do videos. We know how to do commercials.
But absolutely. But all of these black Democratic officials need to be advocating and saying, you know what, I come from this community. This is what we need, and they need to pay us the same. Robert.
That's right.
Daryl. And they should have everybody on speed dial. And this is not I'm not making a case for me, because you know what? You all have shown that you love the show, right? And so you all listen. I'm just saying these are things that they need to do. So when you talk, I mean, I am not the one who, if you called me, I would not be driving his poll numbers down. But his numbers are falling. They're falling.
You got 3 radio talk show hosts on this.
Attorney Fincher's on.
How is it that you miss all of the radio opportunities that you have to reach people where they are, where they're listening, where they are captive? I don't understand that. That's poor strategy. And you wonder why your numbers are down. The one thing about Trump, he hits every platform on a regular. He knows his base. He goes straight there.
And he goes out, wait a minute, hold on, and he goes outside of his base. Remember, he had negotiated with the NAACP in the middle of his presidency. You remember this, Robert? To go to the convention. He knew he was not going to be received warmly. He knew it.
Right.
But he cut the deal. What we did, what the NAACP did, they changed things around at the last minute. They put in a journalist who is hostile to him. He said, wait a minute, that is not the deal I cut with you. Because even the CNN town hall meeting, this young woman who was going to be hosting his town hall meeting, and she is a fine journalist, and we all come from where we come from politically. She comes from conservative media. So of course he's more comfortable with her, and that's fine. That's not a problem. When I see her on television, she is fair. I think she does excellent reportage. Absolutely. I'm just trying to let y'all know there's some things that they are doing, and Reverend Wilson has had experience with these people for 40 plus years. Attorney Jones has experience with these people, and Robert Patillo has experience. We all have experience, and we're just trying to let you know these are things that they are doing that if they don't hear you on our shows, you all come up to us and say that you're upset about it. Is that not what happens, Robert and Daryl? I can't explain it away.
You send an email, you say, hey, can we interview anybody from the campaign, anybody from the administration, etc. They direct you to the website, and they want you to read a statement that they printed up on the website. They don't want to answer questions. They don't want to back and forth. They just want you to, as I said, do the sharecropping. You read the message to your audience, and then they don't have to answer any questions.
And plus, your audience has no place to go. Remember when Joe Biden said, "Hey, you can't be black and vote for Trump"? I'm like, I beg your pardon. You don't do that. You're not the one who's the arbiter of blackness. I mean, enough. Stop thinking that people are going to vote for you. Black people are naturally inclined to be Republican anyway, because black people are socially conservative. It's just that Democrats joined us in the civil rights fight. They were more inclined to help us then and there. I'm just giving it to, am I wrong, you guys? If I'm wrong, please correct me. Hello?
Not at all, and I think they forget that there's always option 3, which is not Republican, not Democrat, the option of staying home. And that's what the option a lot of people take. Or if my vote hasn't been won by Biden, has been won by the Democrats, they'll just stay home in election day. So they may not turn out and actively go vote for Trump or anybody else, but what they will do is forget about you to say we forget about them.
They will do it. And Jeanette and Daryl, we're hearing that. Attorney Mark Fancher, how you doing?
I'm fine. Good morning. How are you?
Oh, as you can see, we've had a lively morning already. But I want to ask you about, this ethical problem they have on the court. In fact, I'm going to have one of our esteemed judges in Illinois come on the show just to talk about ethics, judicial ethics, what they're supposed to look like, what they're supposed to be. I saw him last night at the town hall meeting, and I'm very, very excited. I'm going to speak with him today because I think we need to hear from a judge, Reverend Wilson, who fights to help us to understand the legal system and these wonderful sessions that she has at Rainbow Push.
1 minute.
Thank you so much, Alex. What does what should judicial ethics look like? I just want to know that. You don't have to insert person here. I don't want to know it. I just want to know. And who reviews the cases?
Well, now, what does it look like what does it look like where they sit? Because they are under an ethical oversight, unlike the U.S. Supreme Court, where there's no ethical oversight.
Well, no, they have ethics, right? But they don't obey them. They don't have to.
There's no oversight.
Stand by. No, you're right. Absolutely. Stay right there. Stay there. Stay there. Gotta move to this next segment. Okay, make sure we have quiet in the background. Coming up.
10 seconds. Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today as we talk about President Biden's falling poll numbers and what he can do to shore them up, And got to pivot to the ethics on the Supreme Court. The more that we're seeing that there have been breaches, the more disturbed I think we ought to be, particularly as we look at what happened with Mrs. Clarence Thomas and this voting rights case that I think we need to look at. But more about that in a hot second on the Santita Jackson Show, July 15th through the 19th. Hope you'll be at the Rainbow Push International Conference. Tonight I'm going to be at Stranger at the Gate at the Illinois Holocaust Museum. Cannot wait to see this magnificent film about a Marine veteran who went to a mosque to kill everybody and ended up converting. And ended up the president of the mosque and confessing, and when he was confronted by his brothers and sisters in the mosque, was ashamed. And he's got a powerful testimony and story, and is captured on film. I'll be there tonight at 6 p.m. So call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Let's talk about the ethics on the Supreme Court. Let's talk about Biden's polling numbers. I'm taking all of your calls, and then at the bottom of the hour, John Nichols says, to hell with kings. To hell with kings. You know, George Washington had the opportunity to be a king. He said, absolutely not. This is what we just left. We're not going to do that. So let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. President Joe Biden is set to meet with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy today and congressional leaders amid a stalemate to raise the debt ceiling. The White House has said it will not negotiate on the matter. It remains to be seen whether the parties involved will agree to establish a process for earnest negotiations before the U.S. potentially defaults on its obligations as soon as June 1st. Authorities have released heartbreaking new details about some of the victims killed in the Texas Outlet Mall shooting over the weekend. 2 families lost multiple loved ones in the massacre, including a 6-year-old boy who lost his parents and his only brother. 2 sisters in elementary school were also killed in the shooting, and their mother remains hospitalized in critical condition. 8 people were shot dead, and at least 7 others were wounded before the gunman was killed by a police officer who was already at the site on an unrelated call. A candlelight vigil is planned today in Brownsville, Texas, to honor the 8 victims killed when a person plowed his vehicle, if that's the way it should read, into a group of people at a bus stop outside a migrant shelter over the weekend. While the victims have not yet been publicly identified, authorities say several immigrants were among those killed when a person driving his SUV hit the group on Sunday. 7 others remain hospitalized with various injuries. We got to be very careful about how we write these things, because the SUV was driven by someone. This person used his car to kill people, right? Okay, let's get that straight. In Chicago, we'll have a high of 58 degrees. It will be partly cloudy. In Minneapolis, St. Paul, 74 degrees. Thunderstorms. In the NBA, I think I've got it right, everybody. The Lakers are on the verge of eliminating the Warriors 3-1, everybody. They won last night, 104-101. The Heat, 109. to the Knicks 101. They are on the verge of eliminating the Knicks. And the Celtics will be playing the 76ers tonight. The Suns will be playing the Nuggets. Both of those series are tied at 2 apiece. In the NHL, who's going to get this Lord Stanley Cup trophy? We do not know, but it's an exciting series, everybody. The Golden Knights 5, the Oilers 1. The Golden Knights lead their series 2-1, and the Hurricanes and the Devils will be playing tonight, and the Stars will be facing off against the Kraken. In Major League Baseball, Padres will be visiting the Twins today. Who will win? We'll know tomorrow. The Royals 12, the White Sox 5. They'll be facing off once again tonight. The Cardinals 3, the Cubs 1. They will be facing off once again tonight. Everybody, you know we have been looking for financial freedom. Even in this difficult economic climate, there is an opportunity for you to own a house, and that is really a cornerstone of the American dream, everybody. Land ownership. Only 15% of the world are landowners. Yeah, so America is unique among the so-called developed nations, the wealthy nations, to allow you to own your home and the land underneath it. They've been scaling back those rights over the past 100 years once they realized what they were doing. But it's a big deal, and you need to be clear on how important, how valuable and invaluable home ownership is. And so if you are a first-time home buyer, which means you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you need to reach out to Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, your trusted local lender. First-time home buyers made up only 26% of the market last year, down from 34% the year before, and down from numbers that were much higher in previous years. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have taken note of this, and they are alarmed by it. And so they said, we want to incentivize home ownership for first-time buyers with substantially lower rates. Now, this program could change at any time, so you need to take advantage of it now. If you live in Chicago, and if your total household income is below $105,700 and you have not owned a home in the past 3 years, call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID to see if you qualify for these amazingly low rates that could change at any time. This special offer can expire at any time, so it's important that you call them today. You can go to the website, 56david.com, 56david.com, but I would advise you to also give them a call. Let them know what your situation is, and they will get back to you if they don't have the answers, and they will engage you. It's important to establish a relationship with Team Hochberg, and they're eager to do that. 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or 56david.com. This is your opportunity to start generational wealth, which begins with you, because homeowners beget homeowners, and on and on and on. It continues to go and continues to grow. So please call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or 56david.com so that you can own a home today. Everybody, people are calling this corruption plain and simple. Ginny Thomas took secret payments ahead of a landmark voting rights case. U.S. Supreme Court Clarence Thomas, his Common Dreams report states, and his wife Ginny Thomas are under fresh scrutiny as yet another revelation. This one reported to the Washington Post last week, showing Mrs. Thomas received tens of thousands of dollars in an off-the-book compensation from a powerful right-wing nonprofit group shortly before this group soon would have an interest before the court. That is a pivotal voting rights case that they opposed. So what should happen? Should we now revisit this case? Look at how her husband voted, look at this group, and who does the review? We've got Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire. We've got Attorney Darrell Jones, who will be on WOL this morning, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, which is 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. And, of course, Attorney Robert Patillo, who's on WAOK from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. But let me start with you, Attorney Mark Fancher. Brilliant lawyer, brilliant civil libertarian, and an ethical man, if I may say so. What should happen here? I mean, we're seeing so many of these justices who've worked out these financial deals with people who are from groups that have had matters before the court. And certainly the question we could at least entertain the specter of ethical breaches, right? And my question is, with this voting rights case, let's just start there. What should happen?
Well, I'm not sure there's much that can happen with that specific case, but I think that the root of the problem is found where most of the problems in the society are found, and that's with politicians who, as I've said frequently, are a different species from the human race. And they are charged in Congress with vetting potential Supreme Court justices. That's their responsibility. That's one of the ways in which that branch of government is supposed to keep the judiciary in check, by making sure that they're placing on that court ethical people, ensuring that there are things in their background which don't suggest that they might potentially engage in unethical behavior. And what we have seen time and time again, specifically with the justices on this court, is that when there has been glaring evidence of their proclivities, glaring evidence of their lack of ethics, glaring evidence of their commitment to an ideology which would tend to cause them to be less than fair on some of the most critical issues that are to come before the court, that there is a wink and a nod. The Congress just sort of looks the other way and allows them to go onto the court. And then when they engage in the very behavior that was totally predictable, when they begin to rule in ways which were totally predictable, when they have conflicts of interest, when they are giving the appearance of impropriety, if not actual impropriety in their conduct, then everybody is shocked and alarmed. Why don't they have ethics? What's to be done about them? So the problem is on the front end, not on the back end.
Oh, excuse me, we're getting some hold on one moment, Mark. We're getting some interference.
Sure.
Okay,
yeah.
Very good.
So the problem is on the front end. When Clarence Thomas was appearing before Congress, in his confirmation hearings, you had Anita Hill come forward and talk about him, and then in a very credible way. And then you had him come before the Judiciary Committee and to lie and to lie and to lie. Everybody knew he was lying. And then they said, no, you go ahead and you become a Supreme Court justice. So why should we be surprised now that he is at the center of these repeated controversies on the court? And it's happened with the other justices, with several of the other justices as well. So what do? I don't know what you do, because I think that ultimately, in most cases, you reap what you sow. And I think that this is what people bargained for, and this is what we get.
Robert Patillo, I mean, it's like, do we not have any recourse?
No, we don't. No, we don't. The way that the founders set up the court was that the reason they made the confirmation process so rigorous and strenuous was to ensure that we were only getting the people the highest ethical quality on the U.S. Supreme Court and in the federal judiciary in general. However, over the course of the last 30 years, we've seen the judicial appointment process, instead of being a searching inquiry of the character and the judicial record of individuals, it's turned into a clown show, as every other part of American politics has. And because of this, we have a lot of corrupt individuals on the U.S. Supreme Court. And the fact that Clarence Thomas doesn't have a drop of shame is just galling. Because most people, if folks find out you had a sugar daddy that was flying you around the world and bought your mama a house and put your kids through school and taking you on island vacations like you were an Instagram model and all that stuff, they will step down from the court just to avoid the shame to their name, shame to their family. Clarence Thomas ain't got no shame. He doesn't care what people think about him, and there's a right-wing media sphere in this country that is hopping up to defend him. If you look on Twitter right now, all sorts of Republicans are running to Clarence Thomas's defense, claiming this is a left-wing smear against him, when he hasn't even denied any of the things that are being said. It is so brazen that he cannot just do the things, but he can just say, yeah, I did it. I took all the money, and what you're going to do about it? And there's no mechanism in the United States government to do anything about it besides the impeachment of a Supreme Court justice. And as we saw with 2 impeachments versus Trump, we do not have the type of political majorities needed in America to even be able to handle corrupt politicians. As Donald Trump said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose any support. When you have a Senate that is divided the way that it is currently, if you are a conservative in America, it does not matter what you do. The United States Congress is too recalcitrant, too frozen to be able to do anything about it. So, no, there's no recourse. We just have a few corrupt justices on the Supreme Court, and we have to hope for nature to take its course.
Call us at goodness, 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. Before I pivot to you, Reverend Wilson and Reverend Wilson Esquire, and you, Attorney Darrell Jones, let me get Jim from Chicago. Jim, what's on your mind?
Hi, Cynthia. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jim Clyburn saved Biden's nomination during the primary. He primaried against younger candidates and won the Democratic primary and was probably the best candidate against Trump. Until the grand old party gets Trump out of their nostrils, they love Trump. They're going to run Trump. They're going to vote for Trump. You're going to look for at least 75 million people are going to vote for Trump. So it's just a stark choice. It's a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. That's all it is. They're going to run Trump. They love Trump, and they're going to run Trump because if he gets caught, I don't care what he's convicted of. They're going to run Trump regardless. They love Trump, and that's all it's to it. Anyway, have a good morning, Cynthia.
Oh, thank you, Jim. Boy, oh boy. Reverend Wilson, what's your thoughts?
Well, I don't give up hope because God is not dead. God yet lives. And I think that several things. We now know the dirt within every branch of government has been revealed to us. Some of us felt once we elect people, it's a wrap. They're going to do the right thing. And now we know that even on the highest court in the land, you have people who were appointed by some other partially corrupt people. They approved their appointment because they support the ideology of those corrupt people. And so now we have to change. We can't just vote the top of the ballot. We have to look down ballot, and we have to look at these senators who approve presidential recommendations. We have to elect people to the Senate that represent us. We don't do that. We don't even know, most of us, there are 2 senators in every state. Most of us don't know any one of them in our state. And we don't challenge them. They've never had a town hall. They never come back and tell us. And, for example, the Senate Judiciary Committee has the power to initiate some action against these justices who are violating the public trust. And they can put some rules together, and they can pass legislation. I would submit that the president has to encourage his Justice Department to do a full investigation of every Supreme Court justice sitting there, reveal what they've done to the public, and push this agenda. We can't have an immoral nation like this. The whole world is looking at America, the land of the home of the free and the brave. It's not there. And so, yes, we can do something. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, have to press those that we send to these high places to follow the law, do justice, love mercy. And so we can't just sit back, oh, they're bad people. No, we keep sending them back. Every one of these senators should be challenged. What are you doing to deal with this oversight of the United States Supreme Court? What are you going to do? They're going to be home all summer long. We need to harass them in their local district offices. Many of them are running for election. We need a list. Whose term will be up? And we're going to flood our radio, our television, and our Twitter, our media, social media feeds with information. We may not be able to get them right now, but they can get out in 2024. And we have to put some controls. We just can't let people do what they want to do. None of us have a lifetime appointment to any job, guaranteed income and benefits for life.
And you can do whatever you want.
Whatever you want to do. You just can't do that.
Well, you know, let me bring up.
Judges that you would bring up here today can say, I can do what I want to do and keep my job. No, you can't.
Well,
there's a judicial inquiry board at the state and lower federal courts. I don't understand how the Supreme Court is.
Oh, I do. Power protects itself. And this is where you see the rod of, absolute power corrupts what? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Attorney Darrell Jones?
You took the words right out of my mouth, Santita. But the question that you said that was asked at the Congressman Jackson's town hall, what should judicial ethics look like on the Supreme Court? I think that's the question that really needs to be answered. I can tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like a member of the Supreme Court whose mother is receiving free income, a renovated home, and no rent. It doesn't look like that in cases that are heard before the Supreme Court. It doesn't look like the grandnephew of a justice having their private tuition paid and the firm appearing before the Supreme Court. It doesn't look like that. One of the things that we're going to be doing this afternoon on our show is we're going to have Congressman Ro Khanna on. And one of the questions that you asked was what is a possible solution? And, one of the things that Congressman Khanna has pushed out is that maybe we need to consider term limits for the Supreme Court justices. We've got to start thinking outside the box. You're absolutely right that if you give them absolute power with no oversight, it has the tendency to corrupt. That's what we need to start doing, is thinking about ways to have that change so that it's not a lifetime appointment, but something that's answerable after a period of time, Santita. That, I think, is part of the answer to what's going on with the corruption.
I agree. The last 2 minutes belong to you, Mark.
Well, I think that if nothing else, what comes of all of this is an elevation of the contradictions that are inherent in our system. And I'll say it again, as I've always said, revolution is the solution.
Well, now, mic drop on that. And speaking of revolutions, what about the revolution that was fought in the 1770s to make us a monarchy? Did you know, really, 3 out of 5 Americans feel that a monarchy here would not be a good idea, but that means that 40% do. Well, John Nichols says to hell with kings. We don't need that. Everybody doesn't feel that way. The majority of us do, but that was always the fight, right? So let's talk about to hell with kings, and let's talk about, we're still talking about King Charles, but you can't talk about him enough and the institution enough because they're so powerful, but the corporate media don't tell you how powerful they are. They don't tell you that he's the most powerful landowner on earth. They don't tell you that at one time his mother owned 1/6 of the landmass on earth and controlled the seas. They don't let you know that. They're like they're worth billions of dollars. No, at one point, their worth was, not even 10 years ago, 33 trillion with a T dollars. 33 trillion. They're the wealthiest, most powerful family on earth. So what's the deal? What is the deal? And why are we held in their thrall? July 11th. No, July 15th to the 19th. Rainbow Push International Conference. We're going to be talking about getting you into the trades. That's right. There's more than the academic track, everybody. We're going to be talking about labor. We will be talking about women's issues. We will be talking about this issue. We'll be talking about 2024. There's so much that is going to be discussed and wrestled with this convention, and you've got to be a part of that. Stay right here, talking with John Nichols in just a few minutes on the Santita Jackson Show. My beautiful people, whoever wants to stick around, you're more than welcome to. Is anyone still there? Hello?
Well, thank you for having me again. And you were great last night.
Oh, well, all I did was follow a script, honey. Okay, moving along. I'm sorry?
I'll bid farewell, too, and wish everybody a happy day.
Oh, God bless you. Absolutely. Oh, Robert, you said something? Of course, I didn't call.
Stick around.
Huh?
I will stick around with you and John.
Oh, fantastic. To hell with, I know you will. To hell with kings. You heard that.
All right. Have a great day.
Okay. Thank you, Jeanette. I think I'm going to regret that invitation.
On our show Sunday, we said some old man started walking around in his mom's bathrobe and jewelry, calling himself King. But we're supposed to pretend this makes sense.
Stop it! This one guy on one of these.
Mr. Nichols is on.
Oh, thank you. Hey, John. John, on one of these satirical programs, this man said, and here comes Prince Charles, dressed like a Christmas tree. I thought I was going to die when I'm carrying the orb and the scepter. Oh, my gosh. But if he were not so powerful, it would be funny.
Official portrait?
Hmm?
Have you seen the official portrait?
Absolutely. In 2023.
Almost common. I know.
But do you see all of the laws they put in place to prevent the Not My King protests?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
I was following it. I followed it closely.
Well, let me tell you, Robert Patillo wanted to stick around. He said, "Oh no, I'm gonna stick around for this conversation." You guys.
It really was a terrible beginning, right? I mean, to literally arrest dozens and dozens of people who simply wanted to say they disagreed. I mean, it is a very powerful reminder that the monarchy is never about democracy.
No, well, Reverend said, you can't have monarchy and democracy at the same time. And that's so true.
And if you have monarchy, if you accept monarchy, then you begin to accept oligarchy as well.
Absolutely. And,
they're so
and
related.
that's where we are. Absolutely. That's where we are.
Mm-hmm. 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 And, isn't that big a jump? Jeff Bezos may wear blue jeans and a T-shirt, but when he gets into that rocket ship to go fly around with William Shatner for 10 minutes, he is doing the same thing that you saw with the coronation. It is this incredible expense, incredible spending.
1 minute.
Resources to, venerate yourself, to make yourself into something that is uniquely special. And just as our oligarchs are rich because we don't tax them adequately, so the monarchy in England is rich because not only don't they tax them adequately, the monarchy in England literally, puts down a bill. It costs $125 million to do the coronation.
Well, they own everything, John.
30 seconds.
I know.
Everything.
It's all land under everybody's feet.
I mean, that's why Trudeau had to go to the signing when he became the king, because he owns Canada. He owns the land. They're the largest landowners on. He is the largest landowner on Earth. When people get married, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna name
10 seconds.
Okay, stand by.
Personally worth about $1.5 billion.
Oh no, it's actually.
Stand by, please.
It's like he's walking around.
Stand by.
You know what I mean?
No, but he actually is on. Stand by.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You must be there. And on Monday, we will have a new mayor in Chicago. And I've got to let everybody know because I'm going to be there. How about that? I cannot wait to watch this swearing in. It's going to be a great thing. And speaking of people getting new things and new offices, we watched this weekend the coronation. It wasn't a swearing in, it was a coronation. It's a talk about lifetime jobs. We were talking about Supreme Court. Well, now the supreme landowner on earth is Prince Charles. I, read this book years ago, and I've been rereading it. John Nichols from The Nation magazine by Kevin Cahill, who's an Irish Republican, and of course Robert Patillo has stayed with us. And it was just mind-boggling. When you go to the UK and you meet the Irish Republicans, those people who are not monarchists, who are anti-monarchy, it's really a revelation because they are revolutionaries. They really are. In fact, the green in the Black Liberation flag, the red, black, and green, that green comes from Ireland. we're so connected to them in struggle, and they are, from there at least, connected to us. And so he said he was the one who gave me the information, and then I started digging and found it in other places, that 1/6 of the land mass on Earth was owned personally by Queen Elizabeth. I said, whoa, wait a minute, personally? It's not the firm? No, the firm runs them, but this belongs to the crown. They are worth $33 trillion with a T, with a T, with a T, with a T. So we need to talk about that. What is royalty in 2023? Many people saying, what? And according to this YouGov America story, only about 1 in 5 Americans, 19%, were expected to watch King Charles' coronation on Saturday. And interestingly enough, John Nichols, more Democrats and more adults under 30 said that they would watch the ceremony, which I thought was interesting. But 3 out of 5 Americans said monarchy would not be good, but 2 out of 5 said maybe. It's interesting. And then, of course, you write, oh, wait, oh, fudge, to hell with kings. Flags, the monarchy industrial complex, what? Will be on full display this weekend. I think everybody on the show is nuts today. At a time when the country's public the monarchy industrial complex, come on, John. At a time when the country's public sector has been hollowed out by right-wing austerity policies, sparking high-profile strikes by doctors, nurses, and teachers, the coronation of King Charles and Camilla the Queen consort will cost British taxpayers a fortune, $125 million in American dollars. I mean, whew, and there is more and more and more where that came from. And you said the monarchy industrial complex. How'd you come up with that? It's brilliant. How'd you come up with that? What are you talking about? Where's John? John Nichols. Where is he? Ooh.
John is on.
Oh, okay, John Nichols, take me off mute. Something. Well, Robert Patillo, are you still there?
He dropped.
Okay, well.
I'll try calling Mr. Nichols back.
Okay, call Mr. Nichols. I want you all to call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. And many of you, not many, but a few of you have wondered, why are you spending so much time on King Charles? Because I think that we have been misled. In fact, I know we've been misled. We see them as benign figures who are ceremonial. They're not. When the people elect, they haven't done that in quite some time now, a prime minister, the prime minister must go before the king or the queen to ask permission to form a government. And people say that's ceremonial. Don't you really believe that? They are the largest land-owning family.
Hello?
He is the largest landowner on earth. These people are not benign political figures. John, I was reading from your wonderful piece, To Hell with Kings, the monarchy industrial complex. What are you talking about? Is John there? Oh my goodness.
He's on.
Okay, but it's something that there's something that's not happening here because he's not hearing me. He's not responding, and I cannot hear him. John Nichols, are you there? Oh, John. Okay, well, Alex, let's try and get him back again.
Okay, I'll call him right back.
All right, so I want you all to call me. These are not benign figures. These are people who are of tremendous consequence. Otherwise, all televisions around the world, television stations would not have been on lock. This is not just entertainment. No. These people are extremely powerful, and they have a tremendous impact upon how we live. And we need to understand that. We need to understand that that Queen Elizabeth, with her purse and her matching everything, the most powerful human being on earth. Yeah. And we need to understand how that impacts our lives. And maybe unpack why 3 in 5 Americans say it would be bad for the U.S. to have a monarchy, but 2 out of 5 of us say maybe not. What's going on? Because we do have a modern monarchy. They're called oligarchy. And we celebrate them. Indeed, we aspire to be them. But what's the deal with that?
Hello?
Hey, you still there?
Hello?
You back? Okay, you know what? He can't hear me, Alex.
Hello?
Can you hear me? I can hear you, but can you hear me? Okay, something has happened because he cannot hear me while I can hear him.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let me get right to it. The Monarchy Industrial Complex, that is one of the most hilarious things I have heard or read in a long time. What do you mean the Monarchy Industrial Complex? When we look at all that they own in the world, I mean, and now we're watching these 94% of the Commonwealth is black and Indian. More and more of them are disengaging. They're like, no, we don't want to do this anymore. I mean, the Queen's face was on their money, and while King Charles might not be on their money right now, still, he's all over and all up in their money, because the Commonwealth means what they all have in common is giving their wealth over to the king. That's just the way I put it. It's very interesting because I want you to speak to this. Robert Mugabe, who is reviled even in death by the West. In Africa, he is a king. I was with my father at President Kenyatta's inauguration more than 10 years ago. And it was a magnificent inauguration. Of course, this is Jomo Kenyatta's son, the man who freed Kenya from British rule. And so all of his father's contemporaries wanted to be at his installation, because his father meant so much to them, and they felt that he was, and he has been, a continuation of his father's legacy. And so everybody who was greeted, in fact, and Reverend was greeted as a head of state, cheered wildly. But when Mugabe got into the stadium, the audience went absolutely crazy. Unlike President Mandela, his negotiation with the British was first to give us our land back. He used to have tea with the Queen, Robert. She stopped that practice as soon as he demanded their land back. She would no longer see him. So, Monarchy Industrial Complex. Are you surprised by that?
That's what we're talking about.
To hell with kings, so come on.
No, I'm surprised by I think almost nothing about the monarchy. And none of us should be. This is nothing new. I mean, if you go back, better part of 250 years ago, Thomas Paine, who we Americans give some reverence to and have some respect for, as well as people in Haiti and France and all over the world who fought against the monarchy. Thomas Paine wrote long ago that there's nothing more useless than inherited power, right? This notion that somehow a king is divinely empowered to rule over the rest of us, to have all this wealth, all this position, all this power. And what Paine said was, an inherited monarch is about as useful as an inherited doctor, right? That if your father or your mother was a doctor, that doesn't make you a good doctor. That doesn't even make you a doctor, right? I mean, you haven't learned anything. You don't inherit it. And the same is true with the king. And when you think of it in that context, what you begin to understand is that King Charles III, who was officially coronated on Saturday, maybe he's a good guy, maybe he's a bad guy. Maybe he has strengths, maybe he has weaknesses. But those are in him, not, handed to him through some sort of divine right. And if we start to think that monarchy is somehow something that is above us, that is endowed with power from beyond earthly things, then we fall into a terrible trap, because then we start to accept that there are those, among us who are somehow significantly better than us, that are, literally empowered to rule us. And it's not a big leap, as the British parliamentarian Tony Benn said, from this acceptance of a king to the acceptance of an oligarch or a plutocrat or a CEO or a billionaire. You know, this notion that somehow there are people who are special because usually they inherited wealth and because now they possess a great deal of wealth. It's really at the root of a lot of our problems. And what concerns me about the monarchy industrial complex, you know, this whole industry that is developed around the monarchy, and it's a financial industry. That's what it primarily
So let's
is.
say
It's
that one more time. No, say that one more time. Because I don't think people get that, John.
Yeah, it's not about crowns and scepters and all this, you know, exotic clothing. It's a financial industry. King Charles, it's estimated, is worth $1.5 billion personally. That's just what he's got for walking around money. Now, remember, he gets all the castles, he gets all the staff, he gets all the funding for his activities on top of that. So his personal wealth is just, you know, that's his to fool around with. In addition, he is the effective owner of, you know, the land underneath some of the most, you know, prosperous cities in the world.
1/6 of the world.
Portions of London.
1/6 of it.
Yeah. And then here's where it gets interesting. You can have a good king sometimes. You know, you got this phrasing in history: good king this, good king that, bad king this, bad king that. You know, but if you accept that you're always going to have a king, you are at the whims of that individual, right? And that individual can use his or her wealth as they choose. And you get sort of fooled into this notion that maybe it's okay that they have all that wealth because maybe they will use it well. Maybe they will do honorable things with it. But the history of monarchy tells us that more often than not, they don't do honorable things with it. They use that wealth to, you know, spread their power. Imperialism, colonialism, again, oligarchy, plutocracy, all of these things are rooted in this notion that someone can have immense wealth and do as they choose. And that's why I, you know, wrote the column I wrote the other day, and that's why I think it's important to pull the brakes on all this. And yes, it comes to us on CBS and NBC and ABC and on all the cable channels. We have all this theater and all this, you know, pomp and circumstance, and we're sort of lured into it as Americans. And we're not reminded on a regular basis that this is one of the things that we fought against almost 250 years ago. Our genius was to reject monarchy. Now, we didn't do everything right. We made a lot of mistakes along the way. We failed to truly reject all of it. And now what we have is a situation where we're told, look, this is sort of cute and fun, and maybe, you know, something, maybe it's too bad we don't have something like that. Well, the fact is, we do. We have an oligarchy in America. We have incredibly wealthy people who we venerate at a level that is, you know, almost as wild, almost as absurd as what you saw with the coronation. Just a few years ago, we elected a billionaire as our president. And you ask yourself, well, why did we elect a billionaire as our president? Of all the people in America, 330, 340 million people, why choose a billionaire from that bunch? Is it because Donald Trump really was the best and the brightest? There's no evidence of that. He was given access to power. He was paid attention to because he was immensely wealthy. And until we break that pattern, until we break that sensibility that says there are those who inherit wealth, and Donald Trump inherited wealth, there are those who inherit wealth who are somehow ordained to rule. We run a real danger in this country that we begin to celebrate an oligarchy, we begin to celebrate an elite, we begin to celebrate our own kings, and forget about the whole point of the American experiment. The point of the American experiment was to get away from kings. It was to get away from inherited power. It was at our best, not at our worst, but at our best, to have this march of liberty. And you can't have it. You can't have it if you think that there's somehow somebody who, because they've got, because they own a lot of land or something, somehow they're better, and somehow they ought to have power.
Well, so better than you.
This coronation's a serious thing.
Better than you. I mean, no, I think, because I think you're onto something, and because that's why we're so tolerant, I think, of the oligarchy, which has replaced the monarchy in the United States, because we somehow feel that your wealth, that makes you a success. We don't look at people who raise morally sound children or who are morally sound themselves. We don't see them as successful. No. It is how much money you have. And I think that if we're going to really, if this American project is going to make it, we've got to face up to that. I mean, that there's always been a battle between the royalists and the revolutionaries, right? I mean, and it seems like we have, that's not been, it's like the dangling participle. I mean, we got to work this out so we can complete the sentence, because something is off here. And it is, I appreciate the fact that you make the point that this is about the money. These people the land ownership is the source of wealth, everybody. Only 15% of the world owns land. Only 15%. And I would only get this from Irish Republicans. I told you this book, Who Owns the World, Kevin Cahill, was just absolutely mind-boggling because of the research that he's done. So I'm like, what are we doing here, John? What are we doing?
Well, think about this. That we have a handful of people who are immensely wealthy. In this period of time, in this supposedly enlightened period in history where we have more information, more communication than ever, they're getting wealthier. They're not getting poorer. Wealth is monopolizing. Wealth is expanding. And poverty is as well. The gap between rich and poor grows bigger and bigger all the time. And you have to ask, how does that happen? Well, it is through exploitation. That's an important thing. When you own land, you don't just own land for the sake of owning it, having the deed. You own land so that you can exploit it, right? And if a handful of people have the ability to exploit, the overwhelming, treasure of this world, then a lot of other people are denied. And a lot of exploitation occurs. Again, go back to Thomas Paine, the guy who said we're going to throw off monarchy. And that was a courageous thing. In a moment where they talked about divine right of kings, when you were saying that you have to throw off the monarchy, you were saying, you have to really rethink everything, everything you've been told. And isn't it interesting that of the founders, right, it was Paine who said most strongly, you've got to get rid of the monarchy, you've got to have a fair distribution of the wealth, and also you've got to end slavery. This is an important thing to make that connection, that the anti-monarchist impulse has historically been associated with the liberation impulse, the notion that you don't just get rid of the monarch because you don't want to have somebody wearing a crown. It's not about the individual. You get rid of the monarchy because you want to get rid of all of the sins and wrongs that are associated with the exploitation of not just the land, but of human beings. And until we begin to recognize that, as the British parliamentarian Tony Benn did, a great parliamentarian who revered and respected your father, Tony Benn, the longest-serving Labour Party member of Parliament at the time that he left in the 1990s, he said, as long as we, in Britain, this is a Brit saying this, as long as we have a monarchy, we are going to have an unfair distribution of wealth, because these things are not unrelated. And as long as we have a monarchy, we are going to have exploitation of the great mass of people, the many by the few. And so monarchy can be funny and absurd, and it can make us laugh when we see these pictures, and that's fine. Laughing at them is a good thing. But it's also something that runs deeper, and we ought to think about it. We ought not to casually, as Americans, to casually think, oh, well, this is a light entertainment, because it's not a light entertainment. And the fact of the matter is, in Britain, the people who wanted to protest against this coronation, against the spending of $125 million in tax dollars to put a crown on somebody's head, the people who wanted to protest were arrested before they could raise their signs.
And those
Think about
laws,
that.
and wait a minute, and
Think
those
about that.
laws were put into place just ahead of the coronation. So, but so then, what does it say to you that this Economist YouGov poll says that 3 in 5 Americans say it would be bad for the U.S. to have a monarchy, but 2 in 5 are like, well, maybe. What does that say about us in 2023, John?
Well, it says a couple things. Number one, we've allowed our democracy to decay to such an extent and to be weakened in so many ways that there are an awful lot of people in America who think that democracy can't work, right? That they think it's such a mess. Well, maybe if we just had, a nice family that passed power from, father to son and from mother to son, somehow maybe that would be better than leaving it to the will of the people. And so you got 2 in 5 people who've given up on the basic concept there. Now, I know they will say, oh, well, we want a constitutional monarchy. We want a monarchy that, is parallel to and works with elected officials like they have in the United Kingdom. But be careful of that. Be careful of that, because then you're saying you want something that's unnecessary, right? You want unnecessary pomp and circumstance. Why do you want that? Just for the theater of it? Okay, you can get lots of theater in lots of places. Or are you accepting an order in which some are deemed better or stronger or more appropriately empowered than others? And, Britain has a House of Lords, unelected House of Lords that rules, over many of the policies of the country. Well, we've got something quite equivalent, the U.S. Senate, in which those who serve are not elected by an equal process, where a senator from Wyoming can outvote a senator from California. And so we ought to think about all of our democratic processes. And then if we do so, one of the starting points ought to be we shouldn't want a monarchy, we shouldn't want a House of Lords.
Everybody, I've already posted To Hell with Kings. You've got to read it. You've got to read it. It is a stunning piece, and it's a piece for our times, everybody. It's a piece for our times. I think that Americans, John, in this last really 45 seconds, we have to decide who we are. John, the 45 seconds, close us out.
Well, at our best, we have decided who we are. Our American history is a great history. All of its flaws, all of its failures, again and again, we've seen a march of democracy. We've seen the battle for voting rights. People lived and died for that struggle. And what is the point of that struggle? To give the great mass of people, the many, the power to choose their leaders. We didn't fight and die as a people to empower a family to hand wealth from one person to another. We did it to give power to ourselves. And we have to always remember that.
Power to the people, everybody. It's yours. And indeed, those people who are elected and those people who sit on thrones, they're only allowed to be in those powerful spaces because of you. When you decide that you want your power back, you take it back. And you are the one who has to make the decision about how people in power are going to behave with the power in which you have vested them. It's yours. Stop thinking that somebody is bigger than you. There's somebody bigger than you and I, and it's not King Charles. It's not Jeff Bezos. There's somebody bigger than you and I. It's God. That's it. Let no one have power over you except God. I love you, everybody. Stay right here and we'll get some closing thoughts from John Nichols on the other side here, July 15th through the 19th, the Rainbow Push International Conference. You don't want to miss it. You got to be there. John, will you be there? I hope so.
Oh, yes, I'm coming.
Well, talk to me. I mean, so what is our takeaway? I mean, because I have to tell you, I was absolutely stunned when I saw that poll that 3 in 5 Americans say, no, monarchy wasn't good for us. I said, what's up with the other 40%? What's that?
Well, look, don't blame the people, right? I mean, that's the mistake we always make when we see a poll that shows us something we don't like. Don't blame the people. I mean, what are they being subjected to? If you turn your television on, what did you see over the weekend? From 5 a.m. in the morning, wall-to-wall coverage of a coronation. And I have to say, it's endued with all
It was
sorts
religious.
of pomp and circumstance and religion.
It was religious. They put him behind that screen, and he's being anointed with oil from Jerusalem, from the Mount of Olives. I was like, are y'all for real right now? I'm just going to see the smoke rising in a minute, because this is crazy to me.
Well, it is a little bit like that. And what we ought to understand is that the Reformation, for all its strengths and weaknesses, was a time in which, there were those who said, look, we should respect the notion that God is powerful. God is real. And we don't need necessarily all of these other constructs. Obviously, efforts of Reformation went many directions. But one of the most powerful things of that time, of that period, 500-600 some years ago, was that they began to print the Bible, right? And that was a radical act. When Gutenberg started to print up Bibles, and they started then printed it in different languages, because then suddenly it was said, you can read it yourself. Individuals can read it. And some religions, the Quakers among them, said, you can have an individual relationship with God. That you can have that connection. You don't need to have all these intercessions. Different religions believe differently, right? And I respect, all the different, faith traditions. But what I will tell you is that the notion that you need a king to somehow, govern on earth, that you need someone, who's supposedly got a divine right to govern, that's an affectation. That's something that was created to get between us and our faith traditions, I would argue. And, far from being a defender of the faith, as they sometimes referred to kings and monarchs, these are often folks who, bring great wealth unto themselves, who do often some horrible things, and then tell us that we have to accept it. We can't question it. Well, the fact of the matter is that if you read the great books on monarchy, and I would recommend, King Leopold's Ghost, the story of the Belgian monarchy in Africa, which is just a brutal, horrid story of, awful exploitation, deep, deep cruelty. It was a Belgian monarch who was coming to the United States after World War I, and he was thanking the United States. Thanking the United States not merely for, fighting on the side of Belgium and the Belgian people in World War I, but for then ending the war and allowing that king to remain on his throne and to keep his colonial possessions. Now, this is a big deal. The United States is an incredibly powerful country in the world. So when we intercede on behalf of monarchs around the world, we have over the years, kings and kaisers. When we have done that, we have become a part of empowering them, and we have empowered them at times to do horrific things. And so we ought to think about that. We ought to think more deeply about our relationship with monarchy, because of what it says and does in the world, but also because what it says and does here at home. Because we are not as much of a democracy as we should be, and too frequently we accept barriers to popular democracy. We accept an electoral college that twice in the last 25 years has allowed the loser of the popular vote to become president of the United States. We elect a U.S. Senate that allows the senator from the smallest state to have exactly the same vote as the senator from the largest state, thus disempowering tens of millions of people. We accept a House of Representatives that is so radically gerrymandered that in many cases elections have no meaning. Again and again and again, we accept power that is instructed in a way that disempowers the great mass of us. And then going back to that poll, right? We have a whole bunch of people say, well, see, democracy doesn't work. Democracy works. What doesn't work is the corruption of democracy. And that corruption of democracy, I would argue, is related very closely to the use of power by elites who want to make sure but the great mass of us don't have our say.
Everybody, democracy and monarchy cannot coexist. Just can't. And oligarchy and democracy cannot coexist. I'd go a little bit further. I mean, as we continue to move this conversation forward. And what will it take for us to recognize where we are?
Well, I think this conversation is important, right? And conversations like this are important. This is, the dialogue that we should be having. We should have been having it on Saturday. I don't mind that the, media reports on the coronation, right? That's fine. It's totally appropriate. But there should have been a good deal of reporting on the fact that those who dissented against the coronation, against the monarchy, were arrested in London. Because we ought to understand that, as I've suggested, monarchy and democracy don't go together, right? And the desire to silence dissent, which is so afoot in our country, and so afoot in countries all over the world, it's rooted in the notion that someone in power can tell you, you can't complain. One of the greatest things in the American Constitution is that promise that we have a right to assemble and to petition for the redress of grievances. Where we see that right trampled upon, we see power using its strength, its authority, to deny us that right. And it's interesting that only a few years after we fought a revolution to get rid of a king, take the United States out from under the heavy hand of monarchy, those founders, imperfect as they were, wrote that Bill of Rights and put that right to assemble and petition for the redress of grievances right up there in the First Amendment. So, understand, if we talk about it in that way, if we say, if you have respect for what is best in American history, that struggle to allow people to speak, to allow people to worship as they choose, to allow people to have a free press, to have freedom of speech itself, and to amplify that speech. We accept that those are important things, and we accept that throughout history, our greatest leaders have used that power, even in the most difficult circumstances. Frederick Douglass, the suffragettes, Martin Luther King Jr., Walter Reuther, and the labor leaders. All these people are our greatest leaders. Cesar Chavez. They have used that right to assemble and petition for the redress of grievances to push this country forward, right? To move us in a dramatically better direction than the founders even imagined. That's still a vital right. And it's always under assault, it's always under threat. And when we see it happening in another country, when we see it happening in the United Kingdom, it colors the character of the celebration. The coronation isn't quite so pretty if we understand that people who simply wanted to say, "Not my king," were literally arrested and held throughout the whole process of the coronation. They were released once it was done, but they were only released when they could no longer protest.
Think about that, everybody, because that's something that's been woefully underreported in American corporate media, and in just corporate media generally speaking. Woefully you would not even know that there was a Not My King movement if you did not lock into alternative media in the United States, if you did not lock into independent media in the United States. Think about that. So, I just think that what we need to do is understand that we've traded in monarchy for oligarchy, and what that means for us. What that means. We're fighting each other. We're saying, oh my goodness, we don't have enough money for the migrants. Even though, as I shared with you yesterday, John, it's the corporations are bringing the migrants in. Like the corporations brought Africans in 400 plus years ago. When President Biden in an interview a few days ago said, just as an aside, as he was talking about the migrants, he said, "But we need our farm workers." The Department of Labor relaxed their travel rules to allow Central and South Americans to come into the United States to work for little or nothing to rebuild the Gulf in the wake of in the post-Katrina world. They would not even let the people who lived in New Orleans and the Gulf region come back or stay and rebuild their homes because they wanted them out of there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and think about this. We just had a report on 60 Minutes, which is a good show, on Sunday about the return of child labor.
Oh.
Literally, little children working in factories, right? And this is an important thing to understand. Corporations will exploit, right? And it's easy to say, well, that's a bad entity. But corporations enrich individuals, right? They move wealth and power to individuals, those who own them, those who are the wealthy stockholders, the CEOs and such. And so, you understand that when you see someone who is a billionaire, a multi-billionaire, who's immensely powerful, who controls a great deal of land, who controls great industries, right? When you see that individual, you really ought to ask, how do they obtain their wealth? How do they maintain their wealth? What do they do? Who do they exploit? And remember that exploitation takes many forms. It can be child labor, which is horrific. It can be just failure to pay workers a living wage, a failure to treat workers with respect, on the job and in the community. But it can go beyond that. It can also take the form of a refusal to pay taxes and an exploitation of the political process so that the laws are written, the structures are put in place, that those who are very wealthy don't have to shoulder their fair burden. So there are many forms of exploitation. But once we understand that the powerful, the very wealthy, will exploit if we let them do so, right? Then we have to ask ourselves, where does that impulse come from? Why would we let them do this? And the answer too frequently is that we venerate those who inherit wealth, those who hold a great deal of wealth. We think somehow they're special. We get fascinated by the lifestyles of the rich and famous. We are amazed when they buy rocket ships and fly into space, for 10 minutes and spend billions of dollars, with their fun and games. We think that's entertaining. Well, maybe it is, but it is also an example of ostentatious greed playing out in public. And, we see the coronation in England. We see Jeff Bezos in his rocket ship. It's not so different. It's not so different. It's rich people, privileged people, playing games with their money rather than paying their fair share of taxes into a system that, if it was well organized and progressive, would begin to address the issues of poverty and income inequality and lack of health care, lack of education. How can we look at a king spending $125 million in taxpayer dollars to get a crown put on his head in a country, the United Kingdom, where nurses and doctors are striking just to get a living wage? How can you look at that and say, oh yeah, everything's fine? Everything is not fine. Not fine in the United Kingdom, not fine in the United States.
Amen to that. It's not. But I think we have to get our sense of somebodyness. I am somebody. We really, really need that in order for this change to take place. Because only people who feel that they lack invest that part of themselves that they feel that they lack in someone else. I look at The Wizard of Oz with great fascination now because I'm so much older. It is so interesting that at the end of the day, at the end of the movie, Dorothy found that she could have been home already because she already had everything she needed. But she had to believe it first. The lion had to believe it. The Tin Man had to believe it. I mean, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you don't need to have someone on top of you. You are more than enough. That's why I try to share with people, John, that voting is the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end. You need to get involved and hold the people you exalt into these positions, but you shouldn't exalt them, you elect them into these positions. Stop exalting people. Respect them, but don't exalt them. You only exalt God. Yes. And hold them accountable. Do it respectfully, do it lovingly, put yourself in their position, because you don't want anyone to speak to you in a way that is unkind, that's disrespectful. And having said all of that, come on, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Are you going to continue to let people lord over you? Please don't do that. Please do not do that. All these people who are over in England, who are struggling. You go to England, boy, well, these people don't live as well as Americans do. Many Americans do, not all, clearly. They don't. All you have to do, hey, I'm a big fan of HGTV. Look at House Hunters International, and you will see when Americans are looking for a home someplace else, they go, whoa, whoa, whoo, whoo. It costs a whole lot to be middle class over here. Yeah. That's how revolutionary America has been, John. And I think we have got to embrace that. We've got to tell the truth about this. Got to do it. We got to do it. So your final thoughts, the monarchy industrial complex. I cannot wait to tell my mother about this. She is going to get she already thinks you are precious. She's going to say, she is going to love this. Trust me. Can't wait.
Yeah. Well, let's give our due to Dwight Eisenhower, who gave us this concept of a blank dash industrial complex. He called it a military industrial complex and warned us about it. But unfortunately, we can insert other words. And the fact of the matter is that the United Kingdom has a monarchy industrial complex, right? It is a system set up to guarantee that, when it comes time to crown a new monarch, there's going to be this big show, bigger show than ever, more pomp and circumstance than ever. And it's a lot of theater, right? A lot of celebration and fireworks and, parades and carriages and crowns. But lost amid that is the reality of what happens the next day. The next day, people wake up, and Charles has his crown, right? And he has all of his land and all of his wealth. But the celebration is over. The parade is done. Fireworks are stilled. And the United Kingdom goes back to the circumstance of immense wealth inequality, of class divisions that run deep, of nurses, doctors, teachers, and others who are not paid a fair wage. And all the challenges, all of the ugliness, right? And do you blame Charles for that? He's an individual, right? I mean, individuals are who they are. But accept this reality. The system, the monarchy industrial complex, that's what you ought to be upset about, because that's what makes sure that when Charles is gone, then there's going to be William. And when William is gone, then there's going to be somebody else. But there's always going to be somebody riding in that carriage, sitting on that throne, wearing that crown, and possessing all that ill-gotten, and I emphasize that word, ill-gotten wealth. And so if we accept that that's problematic, when we describe it in that way in the United Kingdom, this is the only reason we talk about it, not to beat up on the British. If we accept that that's problematic there, then we ought to bring it back home to America and ask ourselves, isn't it problematic here as well? Isn't it wrong here as well that we have a billionaire class that will always be wealthier, more powerful, more able to exploit? Shouldn't we be saying, look, in this society, if we have immense poverty, if we have immense challenges as regards to education and healthcare and so many other issues, shouldn't we be taxing immense wealth at a level that redistributes that wealth? Important word, redistributes that wealth in a progressive manner, so that those who have need are given what they need from each according to their ability. That's the wealthy. They have the ability to pay high taxes, to each according to their need. That's the poor and the exploited who have a need of at least some small portion of that wealth, right? Some each according to his ability, two each according to his need. That is a concept rooted, not in some economic theory. That is a concept rooted in the great faith traditions of the world. And I think it's okay to go back to those moral groundings and to say to ourselves, that loaves and fishes, right? If you've got thousands of people to feed, let's figure out a way to feed them.
What did my mother say? Wait a minute. Because we have all these conversations. Now we have discussions that they talk freely about depopulation in Scientific American. This scientist mused aloud a couple of days ago, said, no, when there are few people on Earth, we will live better. I'm like, wait a minute. Which goes against everything that I was taught, but not only by my religion, by my mom. My mother said, wait a minute, when we had each of you, we could afford none of you. What would you want me to do, put you back? What are you talking about? My father says, wait a minute, a chicken? No, we chopped it up. That meant we had to chop it up just a little bit more, get some more rice, stretch, and everybody walked away sated. Not Satan, sated, satisfied. I just think, feel that our values are off.
Well, and ask yourself this question. Well, those who say, we need to be depopulated, right?
Oh.
Didn't we have horrible exploitation 200 years ago?
Absolutely.
200 years ago in the United States, we had slavery. We had enslaved people in this country. We had indentured servitude. We had all these things, this terrible exploitation. And we had a lot fewer people, right? So the notion that somehow depopulating is going to create a circumstance where the wealth is fairly distributed, there's no evidence of that in history. None. None at all. The fact of the matter is, you look at your circumstance, you look at where you're at, you look at where the wealth is, where the poverty is, and at our best, we figure out a progressive system by which we can assure that a fair portion of that wealth is distributed in a way that the poverty doesn't exist, right? We can eliminate poverty. We don't have to, I don't like the word address. People say, well, we can address poverty, right? No. That means that you're going to talk about it, right? No. I like the term eliminate. We in this wealthiest country in the world, we have the power to eliminate poverty. Doesn't mean that there won't still be some poor people. The Bible tells us that poor will always be with us. There will be some folks who are in a difficult circumstance, but we can eliminate the pain of it, right? We can create circumstances where, at the very least, the vast majority of people who are in a desperate circumstance can have a way out, right? They can have that education. They can have that health care. They can have that job. Right?
No one on earth should go hungry. No one on earth should go without shelter. No one on earth should go without clothing. No one. You're never going to make that right for me, to me. You're never going to do that. And we have to change our thinking because we get real selective. I've heard a lot of people as we talk about the so-called illegal immigrants. First of all, most of these people, they're all Americans. They're here. America is North, Central, and South. And many of them, they are fleeing their countries oftentimes because of the mischief that our government and our corporations have stirred up. That's real. But you cannot just let America be the playground of the European. That having been said, you're right, we cannot feed everybody. We can't feed everybody and do war. That's the caveat. We can feed everybody. We can. And do you need to ignore black people who've been here for several centuries? That's what black people are burned about, John. You're like, wait. I can't. There was a song by the Staple Singers, When Will We Be Paid for the Work We've Done? We've been singing that song for 400 plus years. So I get it. And we have to continue to push so that we can get what it is that we deserve. I get it. I'm with you. But what I'm not willing to do is become what I have railed against, I'm not going to beat up on anyone else, even as they come to the United States, and many of them opt to become white. Not just check the box that they check on the census form, but their politics, in which they disadvantage someone else because they're white proximate, in a way that black people can never be. That's why desegregation was always the answer for us, not integration. We can't integrate. When you find out someone has black blood, it completely changes the conversation about them. You can be part Indian, like Wayne Newton and Burt Reynolds. You can be part of everything else. But when you're part black, it changes the conversation, John, and we have to be honest about that. Changes the whole conversation about you. Carol Channing, you find that her father was really passing and she was actually black. Ooh, wait a minute. You see her very differently now. You know, so it's just so, I'm just saying, you know, let's just be fair. Let's be fair, but let's not continue to mistreat people and treat people the way that we do. It's not right. It's just not right. You know.
It is not right.
It's not right. So I'm going to give you the final word, and then we're going to get on out of here. To hell with kings. I'm sorry. When I opened up your link, I said, what has he done? Okay.
A lot of people, we had a lot of good response to that. And it was, I think that you know, that phrase "to hell with kings" comes from a former mayor of Milwaukee, Daniel Holm, who was asked to greet the King of Belgium on that tour back after World War I. And he said, look, you can invite the king if you want, but don't ask me as the elected mayor of Milwaukee to go out and do that. I was elected to represent the working person, not the monarchs. And then he said, to hell with kings. And this is an important thing to understand, that we make choices all the time. We make choices of who we respect and who we venerate, who we see as special. At our best during the pandemic, we celebrated frontline workers. We celebrated so-called essential workers. And we gave them a good deal of respect. We applauded them. We put signs in our yards. Now that the pandemic has dialed down, however, many of those frontline workers, many of those essential workers are struggling just to get by. They didn't get the pay raises that they deserved. They didn't get the better hours that they deserved. They didn't get the better circumstances that they deserved. Some of them are now on strike. Nurses, grocery store workers, and others around the country are in many cases having to strike just to get a decent living wage. And so we forget very quickly those working class people who we at times may briefly celebrate. Unfortunately, we don't tend to forget the very wealthy. We don't tend to forget the kings and the oligarchs, the plutocrats, the powerful individuals, the CEOs, the billionaire class. They're in our face all the time. They're present in our lives all the time. And they're able to buy a very good image, right, to present themselves as very, very special people, right? And they maybe even give a little bit to charity, and I welcome that. I think it's wonderful when they do. But our duty is to always keep in mind, always keep conscious of the poor and the working class, the people who actually make this country great, make any country great. And, not a lot of coronation for the poor and the working class. They don't get to ride in chariots or in carriages. They don't get to get crowns on their heads. But if we're honest with ourselves, if we have these discussions as we should, we're brought back down to earth. And instead of coronations, we see the beauty of a picket line. We see the beauty of a protest. We see the beauty of a demand for justice. And to me, always, that's what's more worthy of veneration. That's what's more worthy of celebration. Working class people demanding their rights, demanding fairness, and using their right to assemble, but also using their right to vote for a better world. And as long as we celebrate that and recognize that, there's the possibility for redemption. We can get out of this mess. And that better world will be good for the working class, and ultimately it will be better for the wealthy. Mm-hmm. Because they won't have to worry all the time about protecting their riches, right? Talented people will always do well, right? They'll always get their chance, right? But if there's a fair distribution of wealth, we'll find that there are talented people, skillful people who, have been blocked in the past but can now rise. Fair distribution of wealth allows us all to rise. And some may rise a little higher, but that in the scheme of things, a lot more people will rise, and people who will rise from circumstances that, don't have any inherited wealth, don't have any, crowns or carriages. They will rise from the humblest of circumstances. I worship a Savior who rose from the humblest of circumstances.
Oh, my goodness.
And transformed the planet.
Absolutely. Born in a manger, my Lord.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And introduced by shepherds.
Absolutely.
Tending the fields by night. When you think of that, essential workers, people who are out in the field working at night, right? Visited by an angel who said, go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has occurred. And we're taught this, and it's not just Christianity. At its best, Judaism, and at its best, Islam, at its best, all the great religions of the world. They're in their deep, deep teachings. They tell us about humble servants who came to do good and to preach liberation. Well, that's this notion of monarchs and kings and oligarchs and billionaires. That's a different thing. I don't hate them. I don't despise them. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that in a fair and adequate assembling of the world, our reverence would be toward those who come from humble circumstances and who seek a fair and just world. And that's what we spent a little bit of time talking about today, and I'm very glad you invited me to do it.
Well, every Tuesday, always love to hear what your thoughts are. I don't know what you're going to talk about, but I love it. I don't know, because so much happens. And it is a tribute to you that we all want to hear what is on your mind during the week. And I'm just so glad that you're part of the family.
I'm honored to be a part of the family. Very honored. I'll see you in July.
Oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. In fact, my mother's going to give you a call. And I might be on the call. Yes. She's trying to locate that film that the Nation did on the rainbow.
Oh,
yeah, I think it was in 2008.
Yeah, we can figure that out. That won't be hard.
Okay.
Let me even, just as you remind me of it, I can figure something out there.
Okay, please do.
Well, we can make that happen.
Please do. Because she's very eager to see it. And she
when your mother calls, that's when I jump.
Okay, well, hello. So the rest of us, that's right, we all go, woo, woo, woo.
Get moving.
That's what we do, sending you so much love.
Love to you.
All righty, God bless you.
Blessings.
God bless you all. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Sending you so much love, and thank you for being with us today. You all make the show what it is. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Kathy, you say you call it the firm. No kidding. You and Diana and me. It's all of it. It's all of it. But, I think we need to know what we're looking at. I love you all. Have a great, 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 great day. Going to run some errands and then take a bit of a nap and then keep it moving. Sending you so much love, everybody. God bless you.